Good evening. Let us continue with the human digestive system. Okay. Here is the diagram of the human digestive system and some of the important parts of the human digestive system, that is the digestive tract or the alimentary canal, are marked over here. Okay. Let us see one by one. First is mouth. Mouth is the small opening in the head region through which the food enters in the body of the human being. Okay, that is in the buccal cavity. After mouth comes the buccal cavity. Buccal cavity is a space in the head region where there is a floor, and on that floor there is a tongue. Then on the top there is a palate. Then on the two sides of the buccal cavity there are two jaws. Okay, and on the back of the buccal cavity is throat. Okay, in the same buccal cavity we have the salivary glands. There are three pairs of the salivary glands which secrete the saliva. We'll see the function of saliva later on, and also the function of tongue. Then after that comes pharynx. Pharynx is the place where the air and the food cross each other. Okay, it is just behind our throat. Then in the pharynx open two openings. One is gullet and one is glottis. Glottis is the opening of the windpipe and gullet is the opening of the food pipe. Glottis is having a flap-like structure on it which is called as epiglottis. The moment food enters in the pharynx, epiglottis will close the glottis and the food will be directed towards the gullet. Okay. After that, the food enters in the gullet. Here you can see that. See, this is not exactly what happens in the pharynx, but you can try to understand. Here there are two pipes. One is the food pipe and one is the wind pipe. Okay. And here this line, small line which you can see over here, it is like our epiglottis. The moment food will come over here, this epiglottis cover this glottis and the food will be directed into the esophagus. That is the food pipe. Okay. Now, once the food enters in the esophagus, then the food moves towards the stomach by the peristalsis. You all are familiar with the peristalsis. Peristalsis is rhythmic expansion and contraction of the pharynx. Okay. Then after that, the food enters in the big J-shaped bag-like structure which is called as the stomach. Okay, here you can see that here your esophagus is coming down, and then this structure is liver. Okay, from this liver, then one tube will continue which will take the food to the stomach. Okay, and here in the stomach the food will be collected. Okay, this stomach is muscular in nature. Okay, now what is the muscular? Those body parts which are muscular, they are controlled by the brain. Okay, means whenever brain want, they will move, they will expand, they will contract, and this movement of the the stomach, that is expansion and relaxation, is called as the churning. Because what happens when the stomach will expand and contract, then the big food particles will break into the small food particles, and this process is called as churning. Then the walls of the stomach has some important glands called as the gastric glands. These gastric glands secrete the gastric juice. Okay, this gastric juice has three important components in it. Okay, the first important component is HCl. Then second one is one enzyme called pepsin. Then and third one is mucus. Okay, we all know that HCl is very strong acid and it may damage the walls of the stomach. Okay, so to avoid the damage to the walls of the stomach by the action of HCl, okay, this gastric gland produce mucus. This mucus forms a lining on the inner walls of the stomach and does not allow the HCl to come in contact with the walls of the stomach, and in this way mucus protect the walls of the stomach from the action of HCl. Okay, in case if suppose the layer of the mucus becomes thin, then the HCl may come in contact with the walls of the stomach and may cause the ulcers over there, which are very painful. Okay, then after the stomach, then food enters into the small intestine through the first part. The first part of the small intestine is called as duodenum. Okay, you must remember that small intestine has three important parts. The first part is duodenum, second is jejunum, and third one is ileum. Okay, what are their functions? We will see in detail later on. Okay, then after that the food goes from small intestine. Then remember, small intestine is the longest part of the alimentary canal, but still it is called as the small intestine because its diameter is very small. Okay, Then, so the food will pass through the small intestine, and after the complete digestion of the food in the small intestine, the food enters into the large intestine through this part. Okay, then here, this lower part of the small intestine, this one, it is called as the cecum. It is a blind sac. Blind means closed at one end. Okay, and in the cecum is attached another important part of our body, that is the appendix. Okay, you all are familiar with the appendix because of the disease. Okay, then it is called as the vermiform appendix, and you must know that it is a vestigial organ. Now, what is the vestigial organ? A vestigial organ is that organ which is present in our body but it has stopped working. That's why it is called as the vestigial organ. Okay, then actually the function of the appendix is, vermiform appendix is to digest the cellulose, and you all know from where the cellulose come, the cell wall of the plant cells. Okay, but since very long human have stopped eating the large amount of cellulose because we peel out our food and then eat, or we cook it and then eat, and because of this reason we do not need to digest the cellulose, and hence the vermiform appendix has stopped working, and that's why it became this vestigial organ. After that, the food enters into the second part of the large intestine, that is called as colon. Okay, then this colon is divided into three parts. In this part over here, the food rises up. That's why this part is called as ascending colon. It is the ascending colon because the food is rising up. Then after that, the food goes into the second part of the colon. Okay, and it goes from one side of the body to the other side of the body. That's why it is called as transverse colon. Here TC is for transverse colon. Then after that, the food moves downward. Okay, and that's why this part is called as the descending colon. Okay, and the last part of the large intestine over here is rectum. This rectum helps in formation and storage of the waste material. Okay, and after that we have the last part of the digestive tract, that is the anus over here. Okay, now see, while studying all these things, then I did not mention some of the important parts over here. Now look at them. Okay, and also look at their position. Okay, first here this part. Okay, this is called as the gallbladder. Okay, and this part over here, it is called as the pancreas. Okay, in the last year's examination it was asked what is the position of the pancreas. Okay, so you must know that pancreas is just below the stomach. Okay, and where is the gallbladder? Gallbladder is just below the liver. Okay, this part. Okay, this is the liver. Our liver has two lobes, one big lobe and one small lobe. So this is liver, this is stomach, then this is gallbladder, this is pancreas. Okay, so these are the parts of our digestive tract or the alimentary canal. Okay, now let us see the digestion of food in each and every part of the digestive tract. Okay, now let us see in detail. Okay, first, digestion in mouth. Okay, remember, if they ask you the question, okay, where does the digestion of the food starts in the human body? So digestion of food starts in our mouth. Okay, in our mouth are present the salivary glands. Okay, these salivary glands are three in pair. Okay, and they produce saliva. Okay, you all must be knowing that whenever we see the tasty food, our mouth start watering. This water is nothing but the saliva. Okay, which is a mixture of water and two enzymes. One enzyme is this amylase. Okay, it is also called as salivary amylase because there are two types of amylase in our body. One is present in the small intestine, which is secreted by the pancreas. So that's why they are named as salivary amylase and pancreatic amylase. So here is the salivary amylase. Then the salivary amylase is also called as ptyalin. P-T-Y-A-L-I-N-E. Ptyalin. Ptyalin is the another name for the salivary amylase. And see, apart from this salivary amylase, there is one more enzyme present in the saliva, which is maltase. Remember, whenever there is ASE in the name, okay, ASE means it is an enzyme, and whenever there is OSE means sugar. Okay, and remember there is some relation between the enzyme and the sugar. Okay, for example, maltase will act on the maltose Then similarly there is an enzyme called lactase which will act on the lactose. Then there is another enzyme called fructose which will act on the fructase. Okay, fructase will act on the fructose and sucrase will act on the sucrose. So remember, whenever there is OSE in the last of the name of the substance, then it is a kind of sugar. Okay, what are they? We'll see later on. Okay, so here in the saliva are present water plus two enzymes. First is salivary amylase, that is ptyalin, and second one is maltase. Then these two act on the starch, okay, and convert the starch into glucose. Okay, you must be knowing that glucose is the simplest form of the carbohydrate which can be absorbed by our body easily, and it becomes the instant source of energy for our body. Okay, now let us see how it happens. First, the amylase acts on the starch and convert the starch into maltose. See, starch is a complex sugar. Okay, it's a carbohydrate in complex form. When the amylase will act on it, it will convert into a simple sugar called maltose. Then, but this maltose is cannot be absorbed by our body. That's why this maltose need to be converted into glucose. So first, starch will be acted upon by the amylase, and then starch will get converted into maltose. Then this maltase will act on the maltose and convert it into glucose. And after this, the digestion of the starch will be completed in the mouth. But the condition is that here this will happen only when the food is masticated properly for sufficient time, or it is chewed by us for the proper time. Otherwise, then this starch will not be digested over here, and undigested starch will enter into the stomach. Okay, then now again in the mouth, this saliva, it has very important role to play. This saliva is a liquid, then which binds the food particle. It makes our mouth moist so that we can speak comfortably. Then it also helps in making the bolus slippery. Now bolus, when you chew the food, after chewing the food for sufficient time, then a paste will be formed which is ready to enter in the pharynx. So that part of the food which is chewed by us is called as the bolus. Okay, the saliva makes the bolus slippery so that it can pass through the esophagus very easily. Okay, then in this way the food will be partially digested in the mouth, and then after that the bolus enters into the pharynx. Once it enters into the pharynx, then there are two openings, one is gullet and one is glottis. The epiglottis will cover the glottis and does not allow the food to enter into the windpipe. Then the food will enter into the esophagus through the small opening called gullet, and then by the peristalsis this food will enter into the stomach. Okay, now let us see what happens to the food in the stomach. Okay, now the digestion of the food in the stomach. Okay, you all know that our stomach, it acts as the reservoir of the food. Okay, it has the capacity up to 3 liters. Okay, once the food enters in the stomach, then it is the elastic bag which expands and stores the food for hours. Then the walls of the stomach produce a juice called as the gastric juice. Okay, there are the glands in the walls of the stomach which are called as the gastric glands, and these gastric glands will produce the gastric juice. This gastric juice contains 3 components. One is HCl, that is hydrochloric acid. Then second one is pepsin, an enzyme, then which acts on the protein, and third one is mucus. Okay, now let us see the function of all 3 one by one. First, HCl. See here, this HCl creates the acidic medium over here because the enzyme pepsin is activated only in the acidic medium. It cannot work in the basic or neutral medium. That's why an acidic medium is required in the stomach, and this acidic medium is created by the HCl. So this HCl will create the acidic medium to activate the pepsin. This is the first important function of HCl in the human stomach. Then the second important function of the HCl is that it kills the germs accompanied with the food. Okay, it kills germs or bacteria then accompanied with the food. And the third important function performed by this HCl is that it stops the action of saliva. Okay, it stops the action of saliva. Action of saliva. Now remember, if they ask you only one function, what is the function of HCl in the human stomach, then the first important function is that it creates the acidic medium to activate the pepsin. If they ask you two functions, then the second function is that it kills the bacteria. If they ask you the third function, then only you will write that it stops the action of saliva on the food. Okay, these are the functions of HCl. Then comes pepsin. This pepsin acts on the proteins in the stomach and digests it in partially. Okay, the pepsin will act on the protein and digest it partially to convert it into proteoses and peptones. Remember, proteoses and peptones. We'll see it in detail later on. And then the third part is mucus. This mucus protects the walls of the stomach from inside from the action of the HCl. HCl is very strong acid and it may corrode the wall of the stomach from inside, which may cause the ulcer, which are very painful. And that's why we need the mucus to protect the walls of the stomach from the action of the hydrochloric acid from inside.